and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary here in Southborough, the COVID-19 edition. If you haven't seen the show before, once again, my name is Art Bergeron. I'm an elder law attorney. That's my day job. I work at Myrick O'Connell down the street in Westborough. But this is about Frank and Mary, not my day job. Frank and Mary, if you've been to the senior center, you see my seminars, you know it's about Frank and Mary in their goal to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And if that means Southborough, that means they want to stay in Southborough. They don't want to go far away, especially not now. They don't want to go visit any of those people in states that have got trouble, because Massachusetts is looking better and better. But as you know, I've got my wonderful co-host, Doug Peck, who has been in Southborough now for a long time, and who has been finding the great guests that we often have here, specifically during these times, to talk about issues directly affecting you and Frank and Mary during the COVID-19. So we have a guest who's been on before, but is really going to help update us. So Doug, whom do we have today?
Hi, everybody. We have Jennifer Hoadley from the Alzheimer's Association. She's the regional manager of the Southeastern region, I believe, of the Massachusetts and New Hampshire chapter. And I thought it would be good to update people because, again, so many things have been closed, and for them to know that they're not closed, they're working differently, but they're very much open. And I think this is a time where they're very much needed. So, Jennifer, what's been going on with the association this last month or so?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. So we really have had to quickly pivot with this new era that we're in right now. Very much our programs and services have gone to kind of a virtual fashion. Our 24/7 helpline has continued to operate as usual. And we have been getting a lot of phone calls. Initially, we felt like a little bit of a lull, and I'm not sure if that's people just kind of adjusting to the new norm, but now we're seeing our numbers start to skyrocket. People are starting to realize they really need to reach out and get the help. And that number for people that need that is 800-272-3900. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I always tell people, call even if you're not really sure what you're calling for, because we help people figure that out all the time. If you're worried about memory issues, you're not really sure what's going on, or if you already know what you're dealing with and you just need some added support, that's what we're there for. We also have many different education programs that we offer, and those have been going to kind of an online platform. So people can go to a website. It's alzhereforyou.org, alzhereforyou.org. And that is a way for people to access the variety of programs and services that we're offering. So we have all of our educational programs. They're live and people can chime in with questions. It's just not at a community center or something like that. So it's been good for people to do, to be able to attend those programs. And we're actually finding a lot of people that aren't able necessarily to attend in person, being able to attend these virtual programs because they don't have to go find somebody to stay with their loved one if that maybe isn't the safest thing. They can do it right from their home. And we're also having our support groups have gone virtual as well, which is really helpful.
We're going to put all this information at the end for people, so you don't have to write anything down. You'll see it at the very end. They'll have all the phone numbers and the website addresses for you.
Great.
So tell me a little more about, are there any kind of typical calls, do you know, that you've been getting? Because I can imagine caregivers right now, and everybody's sort of been in the house together now for what, 2 or 3 months. It must be getting a little, stressful for a lot of folks.
Yeah. So we have, kind of a variety. Some of it is, the care partner lives at home with the person who has some form of dementia. Maybe they were able to use some services out in the community, like a day program, but that not being open right now, they're trying to figure out, what do I do to have some meaningful activity around the home? how do I engage this person? So that's one form of phone call that we've been getting. We also have found that there's a lot of people that for a long time there were not able to visit their loved one in a facility.
Yeah.
And how do they manage that? There's a lot of questions that come, and I know that the facilities have been doing a good job about trying to help with, FaceTime calls and things like that to help the person stay connected. But it is difficult. So, we would get calls like that, and we have tips for that. We recently had a Facebook Live event with now a lot of these facilities are now allowing visitors to come in with different restrictions and how to best have a good visit. Some of the things that people may hear are, why haven't you been visiting me? Where have you been? So how to kind of field those questions and, make for a good visit. It's been tough on so many people that are, I think, our whole entire planet has felt this, but people with dementia and their care partners, it's definitely a magnified issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from what I found, I was with an older client just the other day for the first time in a long time. And as much as he could understand bits of it, why he had to wear a mask, et cetera, there was a lot that was it's just very confusing times for them. They really don't understand because they feel good. That's what he kept telling me. I feel fine. I'm not vulnerable to anything. And I kept saying, well, just because of your age, you are vulnerable. And we had a lot of discussions going around about that, just to try to, because it is a very confusing situation. And you do have to make them understand a bit anyway, I would think, of what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's another issue. We actually had an education program, and somebody chimed in with, how do I get my loved one to wear a mask if we go grocery shopping? And they don't think that they need to, or they're not necessarily grasping the whole situation. So one person suggested, maybe just showing them that you're wearing the mask and saying, there's a bad flu going around. You don't have to get into a ton of detail, but just saying, we don't want to get it. So let's make sure that, we keep the masks on while we're doing this. And also trying to plan trips like that to the grocery store so that maybe they be shorter while you're not having to spend too much time wearing the mask in the store. And you can, make a quick visit and maybe go back again the next day. You hate to have to go too much, but, or planning it where somebody may be able to come and stay with your loved one so that you can go out and do those things.
I suppose you raised the interesting point that in the age of COVID, you're also kind of having to adapt the phiblets, regarding folks that because the notion that you're actually going to explain COVID-19 to a person with dementia, let alone to everybody else, to a person with dementia. But that was a very interesting analogy, basically saying, well, it's a bad flu this year. People can get that. So I think that's, one of the hallmarks of what the Alzheimer's Association always gives you. Is it gives you just that kind of very practical advice, because as we always often talk to clients about the, Alzheimer's Association, it may be, it's all great that there'll be a cure, but I'm going to be dead, right? But the question is, in the meantime, how are we making it? And specifically, how are we making it now? But I think you also raised an interesting point that I'd often found when I was doing seminars. I would talk to people about and say, at the senior centers, of course, unfortunately, this seminar is for a lot of the people who aren't here, right? Who really need to hear this, but they're stuck at home, which is why we would, and Doug's, participated in many of those, and we would put them on cable, just like, once again, we're going to call out to our friends here in Southborough at the cable station, how wonderful it is that they are taping these shows and putting it on the cable so that you don't have to be savvy enough to tune in to the website in order to be able to get these shows, but just being able to provide that kind of information is a big deal. And it seems like because of this, we may be getting our message to more people than we would by being at the senior center, right? which is an interesting irony.
I think that's why the helpline is so important, because everybody has a phone and you get to actually talk to a real person, not just throw a question out there. And Arthur, you're right. They always have these, it's sometimes simple explanations, but it's all you need to get unstuck from where you are. And so I think it's really great that we encourage people to call, even if you're just going to visit someone for the first time, you haven't maybe seen them for a month, well, what can I expect? What should my answer be when they say this? They can help you prepare all that ahead of time.
Yeah, because they're thinking about it all the time.
Right. They get 1,000 questions a day about that.
Right. So that you never, when you're don't ever think that like you don't want to bother them, so you're not going to call, right? Because that's why you're there, right? You're there to receive. You've got all these people who would be mad if nobody called. You're right. You're there to receive those phone calls. Now, kind of speaking to what Doug was talking about, though, just those kinds of tips. So, are there? Do you have would there be an ongoing support group in the area? Although once again, one of the nice things about all of this is that the bad news is you can't go to the support group, but the good news is it doesn't have to be in the area. We've had several guests that we would typically wouldn't be coming out to Southborough, but they're doing wonderful things in other places. And because of the fabulousness of Southborough Cable, we can bring them here. So are there places just for people who want to have some ongoing conversation and get some solace, like, oh my God, what a terrible day, just, right?
Yeah, so the support groups that we're offering right now, they are the virtual fashion, but if people don't have access to a computer, they can also call into them. So it's a great option for anybody, really. And they're timed groups. And the reason for that is that we're finding if people aren't necessarily going to a physical place to meet, they're maybe not as apt to call in or log in each week. So with the timed groups, it's about 6 weeks or so that we are meeting. And then once that 6 weeks is up, they can sign up for another support group. It's just a good way to kind of, we see that more people are more engaged and they're apt to come back each week because of it being timed. So that's helped a lot. And also with the helpline, people can get resources that are available in their communities, as well as a more kind of a deeper dive look at their situation, and that's called a care consultation. And it just looks at what does your individual situation entail, and what are the best ways to manage that? What are the things that you need to handle right now, and what are the things that you might expect to see in the future? And so that you can kind of plan for that. Our goal really is for nobody to be taken by surprise or have to make decisions in a crisis mode, because we all know that that's the worst time to have to make a decision. So that you're planning for things and you already know, okay, if blank happens, we already have these resources that we've already kind of researched and know a little bit about. So it's helpful for us to help with planning for the future and what things might look like. It's not a guarantee that everybody's situation is going to look exactly how we say, but it's good to have that information so people can kind of plan around that. And all of these programs and services are available to people, families that are living with dementia in some way or impacted by dementia in some way for no cost. We're able to do that because we have our Walk to End Alzheimer's. We just had our longest day event, but it really is all through the month of June. People can do it at any time. So I mentioned that website earlier, that allshereforyou.org. People can go onto that website and look at all the different events that we have coming up. We have a Ride to End Alzheimer's for anybody that's a cyclist. There's a lot of different fundraising things that we do in order to fund all of our programs and services and allow them to be at no cost for families.
I was going to mention that because it's so important for you folks to keep the fundraising going, even though we may not physically be able to be together. For the example, the walks aren't going to happen this year physically, are they? As far as I know?
Right now, we are in kind of that planning phase.
Oh, okay.
We don't have the exact look about what it's going to look like, but we are moving forward with engaging people, getting people to become sponsors and start walk teams and all of that. What that's going to look like, we're not quite sure yet. So we're encouraging everybody just to look at whether or not we're able to meet physically in person, to look at what is our mission. And our mission is to eventually find either a cure or a disease-altering treatment. But in the meantime, like you said, Arthur, you know, we want to be supportive of the people that are living with it right now. So, you know, that's really what our mission is to help people. And whether we're able to do that meeting as a group or not, you know, we want to make sure that we're taking into account what is the most safe thing for everybody right now. And these are unprecedented times, as I've heard over and over. So sometimes that means taking a different look at what our events look like. But we've had a couple of events that we've had to shift a little bit. We had one that is called Eat, Drink, End Alls. And typically it's a dinner that we all get together, but it went to an online fashion. Where people were able to get recipes and engage in, you know, a lot of the same thing, and it built a nice sense of community, which was great. We've also had a Facebook page called Walk New England, which is really neat. People are posting all over New England, different places that they're walking. It's not a fundraiser; it's more just to do something healthy for ourselves and kind of show off our little corner of the world, which is nice.
It's interesting when you describe all of that. I was wondering, so when you were talking about the walk and you were talking about how people will be walking in any number of different places, you know, and it reminded me of, I do a show in Westborough, and the Westborough folks, we had on the person who runs the wellness for the schools, and they're doing this thing called the Westborough Challenge, where they were doing it with folks who were they were challenging people to walk a given number of miles, and they're keeping track of the miles. But then they expanded it to include seniors, and basically asked seniors to kind of log in the amount of time that they are exercising, whether it's at home or walking or whatever. And then they calculate that into a mile in order to get this kind of general, you know, Westboro is going to, you know, do 1 million miles. So it leads me to this question. Now, you've been seeing all these different things happening, and you've been responding to them. How do you imagine that like what of those things may actually stay? Can you imagine some of the ways in which you do service delivery or fundraising or whatever, even surviving all of this, because you've learned maybe it's actually an improved way?
Yeah, that's a great point. I know I don't do much of the fundraising end of things. You know, I help support that and get the word out. I know that they've taken a look at a lot of different ways to do things. We had an online auction, which did fairly well. So they may continue doing that. We do have a run program, and we have a really solid Boston Marathon team, which they're not going to be able to run it in person this year, which is a bummer. But you know, I think they're still doing the work and fundraising and doing a training for like a virtual run. Same thing with the Falmouth Road Race, and we're looking at a lot of running has gone virtual, so we're looking at that. And I think, you know, in terms of our programs and services, we are realizing that a lot of people that maybe aren't able to attend in person may benefit from this virtual type of programming. So even when we are able to meet again in person, I think we'll probably still offer some virtual options, just so that people that aren't necessarily able to make it in person will have some options.
Right. And it is terrific. Once again, I think people need to appreciate one of the great things of the Alzheimer's Association. They're not trying to nickel and dime you. You know, their programming is almost entirely free. Now, the reason why somebody's got to pay. So the reason why it's entirely free is because they're raising money. So they're really, for folks who can afford during those times to contribute, that's what's running everything. And if you think that if you've got someone with dementia, or if you're just getting old and you say to yourself, I need these people to be there when I need them. You know, it's like supporting your local hospital. You want to be there. They need to be there when you need them, which means you've got to keep them standing, right? It's really important. It's just really important.
It is, because it is such an isolating disease to begin with, and then we're in such isolating times that even though virtual or having phone conversations is not ideal, I think it's still something, and it's something that people can look forward to. And I know if anybody, again, out there has any questions about where's a support group or what's going on, call the helpline. It's just not for personal help. They have got all this information. So if you don't have a computer, don't worry. Just get the number, call them. They'll help you with anything. And it's one phone call. They're not going to transfer you to different people, right? It's that person there is highly trained, very knowledgeable, and they'll be able to help you or get you help very quickly. But it's really important nowadays.
And when you're looking in the short term, do you expect things to be changing in terms of how you're doing things, say within the next month? You know, I know that we're kind of opening up. We're in what, phase 2.2 or something like that. I was seeing that, right? I can't keep track. I lose. But so do you because once again, I'm sure that we'd love to have you back in a couple months just to kind of talk about where things are then, but how do you see it changing now in the short run?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we've been doing throughout this whole pandemic is meeting with as a national organization. So we have these large group virtual meetings, and we're looking at all of the numbers and the data, and we actually have a whole team of people that are doing that. So the decisions are being made at a national level. We do know that with age being, the number one risk factor for Alzheimer's disease, that means that a lot of people coming to our programs are older. So we want to be very careful about any of our in-person type of meetings. So right now, there is no definitive date that, okay, we can go back and do these in-person programs, but we are taking it very slow. It's probably going to be a while before we're able to go back and have in-person programs, just because we want to be cautious. We don't want to jump into anything and then have, that on our heads feeling like, oh my gosh, we put people at risk.
Yeah.
So we really do want to be very careful. Even if people, coming to these meetings may be totally healthy, they are going home to maybe care for somebody who is more at risk. So it's really, we're taking it very seriously and being very cautious about kind of our reopening phase of our own, I suppose.
Good.
But and Doug, I know that we're getting close to the end of our show, but I was curious from your perspective, your own perspective, right? Working seniors, helping seniors. How do you, where are you now? Where do you think that this will change over like the next month? Because I'm sure you're dealing with the same kinds of multiplicity of questions, and you're dealing with a lot of the people that Jennifer talks to.
We are, and we're getting a lot of calls from clients to do anything. Take them out for a ride, take them to the grocery store, just get them out. The weather's turning so nice, and they're seeing everybody else move around, so they want to get out and move around too. Our problem is that the average age of our caregiver is 70. So they fall into that category, and many of them right now are still reluctant to go either to someone's home or to a facility, which is even more difficult. But it is beginning to open up slowly, where more people, I took out my first client last week. He had a dental emergency, took him to a dentist, appointment, and we had to make some modifications. He was in a facility, but the facility I called beforehand had no COVID for at least 4 weeks. So I knew he was fairly safe. He still sat in the back seat, which was I had to encourage him. He was very good. He wore a mask the whole time in the car with me. So all these things, we had to make adjustments, and we had to really talk about it, because being isolated in a facility and not seeing anybody, he didn't really have a chance to know what was really going on either. So we are opening up, but again, with safety in mind. I think when more people get tested, we try to limit one person as a care companion to one person. So that's the only person they see, whether it's 1 time a week or 3 or 4 times a week. So they're just going into one place, and that person's only seeing one of our caregivers as well to try to limit. And we use the appropriate PPE as well.
And I think one of the advantages of you, in terms of seniors who are looking at the show, of seniors helping seniors, is it's nice to have caregivers who are real worried about this stuff.
Right.
You know, you don't want people who aren't taking it seriously,
Yes.
right?
Extra
You want to know everybody's on the same page, you know?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Doug, this was a great idea to have Joan back. Joan, so
Jennifer.
thank you so much for coming back.
Yes.
You know, we really, really appreciate it. You know, we hope that you can come back in another couple months and hopefully life will continue to get better, you know,
Yeah.
even as we get closer to flu season. Oh my God, you know. So thank you very much for coming on. Doug, thanks very much for pulling this together as usual. Thanks to our wonderful folks at SAM for making these shows happen. Thanks to our friend Terry Underwood, whom you can't see, but we can. And we'll hope to see you back on the next installment of Frank and Mary here in Southborough, the COVID-19 edition. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.